Hello, this is Yummy Pajama Man, and today we're going to learn about comparing strings and finally using the if-elif-else statement. So that'll be pretty fun. So we're going to start with comparing strings. So I'm going to type out the program itself. So we're going to use pw assignment operator. Then we're going to use the built-in input function. Do parentheses. We use this a lot, so should be pretty simple for you guys. Enter a password to open account, then put a period there. And so we have our input. So okay, so let me continue on. So we're going to use the if-else statement. So if pw is equal to, remember the two equal signs, so you're using an equality operator and not the assignment operator up here. So use the equality operator. If pw is equal to single quote, yummy, and then make sure to put a colon in here. So now we're going into the block after the if clause, and then we'll do print, parentheses, do a string literal of accessible, if I spelled that right, accessible, I think I spelled, okay, and then else, do a colon, so we'll go into the block after the else clause, use the built-in print function, single quote, or you can do a double quote, doesn't really matter, denied, and that's it. So what we did is we use, okay, so we'll look at the if clause, right? I'm using the global variable because I didn't put this in a function, right? So since this isn't a function, this isn't a local variable, this is a global variable. So if I made functions down here, I could use this global variable pw, and we talked about that before. So what I'm saying is the variable pw, if pw is equal to a string literal of yummy, as you can see, colon, if this expression returns true, print accessible, else print denied. Now, I said that this is a string literal, right? Okay. What a string literal is, a string is a collection of characters. So this is a character, the U is a character, the M is a character, the M is a character, finally the Y is a character. We have 5 characters here, so those 5 characters are a string. Okay, that's what I call this, a string. Each one of these are characters. Okay, so this is a string. We used integers before, right? We used integers before. We also use float, which is a decimal. So now we're finally using a string, a collection of characters. Okay, so what it's trying to do, even though you might think, oh, this is a string, it's not a number. So, and you're right, this string isn't a number. So how can pw, when you input enter password to open, how can two strings here and here compare to each other? Well, the way two strings compare with each other with the relational operator is by using the, if I can pull it up, is by using the Ascii standard. So the Ascii is the American Standard Code for Information Interchange, or ASCII. So let's take a look at that. And whoa, there's a lot of stuff. I know, it's amazing, right? A lot of stuff. And so what we're looking at here is you guys, I'm sorry, decimal, oct, binary, hex, and glyphs. I don't know if I told this before, but computers only understand binary. Okay, a set of zeros and ones that go on and on and on, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, blah, 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 blah. That's the only language, binary, that the computer can understand. So in order to translate this program into binary, we have to use what is called decimal. So what each character is, for each one of these characters that makes up this string, so let's look at Y. So let's look at the chart as for Y. The glyph is what you type on the keyboard. So since it's an undercase Y, we'll go to Y here. What we actually type in is the glyph, what we understand. So since I typed in Y, which is actually undercase here, now what it wants to do is when I run the program, it compiles and it wants to change into decimal. So we go over to decimal here, 121. It'll change to 121 right here. And then from there, from 121, it'll be translated into binary 111, 1001. Okay? So if we go back into here, we know that Y is 121, right? U is, I won't look at it. U is something less because Y is a greater value than U. U is greater value than M. U is or M is the same value as M. And then we're back to Y. Y is decimal. Y is 121. Okay? So when you run this program, for example, what it's going to do is it's going to change this string, each one of these characters into a, let's look at this again, into a decimal. Okay? And then from there, it'll be translated into a binary in which your computer can understand. Okay? It's like saying glyph is English, right? Then we go to decimal, which is Spanish. And then we go to binary, which is Russian. For example, all it's doing is translating from one thing to the next. So from glyph to decimal to binary. Okay, the hex and oct is, I mean, I understand what it is, but let's not talk about that. That'll take forever. So Y is 121. Okay, U is some number, M is some number, M is some number. I know Y is 121. So this whole thing is translated into numbers. So if I entered Yummy up here, all these numbers that are together, it'll say if 121 and all these other ones, there's I think there's 12 numbers or something like that. So if a series of numbers equal to a series of numbers here, print accessible, but they have to be equal to each other. Okay, print accessible, else print denied. So if we run this program, that's how it compares two strings. Oh, and I forgot to put a space in my input. So enter password to open account. I'll just put Yummy accessible. So it goes into this block of code. Since this expression returns true, it'll go into this block of code. Okay. So if we run this again, and if I typed it in wrong, so gray, it'll give me the next block of code denied because it didn't satisfy this expression right here. Gray does not. Gray is if gray is equal to Yummy, which it isn't, so it'll go to else print denied. Remember, it's comparing two numbers here and here. Even though it's in a string, it's going to translate these string of characters into a number. Okay? And I talked about relational operators. Stores numeric code that represent each character. I talked about that. Ascii and all the numbers. If you want to see all the printable characters right here, you can just go to this address and look at each character. Actually, even the string 0 will be changed into the decimal 48. The string 1 will be changed into 49. Okay, if I put 1 here, this is still a string. This isn't a number. This is a string because I put two single quotes here, or I think I can put two double quotes as well. Single quote, double quote, doesn't matter. This is a string as well. As long as it's in between quotes, it's a string, no matter what it is. It's a character. Or a string is a series of characters. Okay? So now you know about comparing strings. You can also use other relational operators, like let's do a new one. So do Control A, backspace. I'll do Control S to save. So we'll do a new example. We're going to do string 1 as an assignment operator, and then we're going to do a string literal of Mark. Okay, so we'll do a capital M-A-R-K. Remember, you put the single quotes in between. If you didn't do that, it'll give you an error because it'll think that this is a variable, which it isn't. Mark isn't assigned any value, so don't do that. I don't think you can actually do that anyways. If it is a variable that contains a value, I'm not sure about that. But just make sure you put a single quote here and a single quote here in order to make Mark a string literal. When I say string literal, I mean it is literally a string. A string contains a series of characters, M-A-R-K. So let's do another string. String 2, this is a variable named string 2, assignment operator, single quote, Kelly. Oh, and then we'll go into our if clause. So if string 1 less than, we're using a new relational operator, less than string 2, do the colon, so you'll go into the block of code. Now we're going to do to print. We're going to do two print functions. So we're going to print string 1 and then print string 2. Okay, so we did that, and we'll go to else colon print. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll do another one. So we'll do the other way around. String 2 print string 1. Now I know that probably you guys are pausing the video and resuming the video like every time when I type this out. I think it's best to just wait for me to type everything out, and then you can just pause the video and then type everything once I'm done. So I'm done. So you can type this all out as well, or maybe you did. I don't know. So I did the Control S to save. So we did the if-else here. We didn't put it into a function, so we don't have to call a function because we didn't define a function. So we have two global variables here. Okay, one is Mark, one is Kelly. It's two string literals, and now we go into the if clause. So if Mark is less than Kelly, if this expression is true, go to this block of code, else go to this block of code. So again, it's going to go back to it's going to assign it a number for each characters, right? So so you know that the letter M, the first one that looks like that it looks at. Let's see. No, actually, it's the other way around. Yeah. So K is going to be the first letter in the alphabet, and then the M will come later on. So actually, Kelly is going to be less than Mark. So it's going to say if Mark is less than string 2, print string 1, string 2. But since this expression is false, it'll go into the else clause. And the reason for it to being false is because the letter uppercase characters A to Z are numbers 65 through 90. And then the lowercase a to z are numbers 97 through 122. So as we go up the alphabet, the numbers for each character will increase. So since M comes before K, that means the number in M will be less than the number in K. Or I'm sorry, it's the other way around. The number in K will be less than the number in M. Okay. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, yeah. So this will be less value than this one. So if we put like M, for example, these two are the same. So if string 1 is less than string 2, it'll actually not print this, it'll go to else. So let's do less than or equal to. So if we do that, if string 1 Mark is less than or equal to string 2, which it is, because it goes to the first one, right? It sees that it's the same. So now it wants to go to the next character. It sees that the letter A is obviously the first alphabet in in the alphabet, right? Okay, and then A, B, C, D, E, and then the next one will be Melly. So this whole string together is less of a value than this whole string here. Okay, so that means if string 1 is less than or equal to string 2, which is true because this is less than this string, it'll print mark Melly. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I don't use this as often. This is usually used for using or doing ascending or descending orders for strings, and that's I can't think of anything else you would use these comparing strings. So that's it for comparing strings. That's it. So I hope I didn't confuse you too much. So let's do Control A. We'll get out of comparing strings. And again, just go back to the Ascii chart to see what the number is here. Remember, it goes from this sign, what you typed out, to this decimal number, and those decimal numbers are in series, and you can determine with the relational operators which one comes first, like what we did with the strings and stuff. Okay, I'll stop talking about that. Okay, fine. So we'll go to something really cool. If we can just move this thing. Okay, so now we're going to learn about if, elif, and else. I said that correctly. We're going to learn about if, elif, elif, and else. Okay, so what I'm going to start out doing is actually typing out. You already know how to do if and else. You've given the user who's running your program 2 choices. Now I'm going to show you how to give them multiple choices using the if and else. And then after I show you that, I'm going to show you a simpler way using the if, elif, else. Okay, so we're going to do a function. Start with the def. We'll name our function main. Parentheses, pass nothing to the main. Colon. So we'll go into the block of code, and I'll type this all out really quickly. We'll do a variable, local variable level, and make sure you put this as int, and then we'll put a built-in function input, and then we'll ask the question, what is your level, colon, put a space here so they have room to type. So let's go to, let's do another space down here. If level greater than or equal to, it doesn't really matter if it's together or not, greater than or equal to 90, colon, print this long series of, well, the string or a series of characters. You are level 90 or above. Level 90 or above. And we'll get out of that block of code, and we'll do an else. So now we have an else. So now what we're going to do is we're going to type out if, we're going to do another if else under the else. Level is greater than or equal to 80. We'll do print, parentheses, you are level 80 or above. And I'll keep on repeating doing this. You are level 80 or above. Now we go into the else again. So now we type out if, actually let's give this a space so you can see, if level is greater than or equal to 70. Don't worry, once I'm done I'll explain everything and reason why everything is indented and creating this staircase effect. Why is it creating the staircase effect? Well, I'll get to that eventually when I type this all out. You are level 70 or above, or you can just skip all this, right? You can use the fast forward and don't have to see me type this all out. greater than or equal to 60, colon, I did that on purpose, do print, oh yeah, so 2 single quotes, you are level 60 or above, period, 60 or above, and then we'll go into the else, colon, do print, parentheses, single quote, you are below required level dot. Okay, so just to double check, does that make sense? Okay, so as you can see, this is a staircase, and we've defined our function named main. So now we want to call the main function. So enter, go all the way back, and we want to type out main parentheses, and we want to type it again, main parentheses, just to make a point later on. Go to save. Okay, so now that all of that is done, I did that on purpose, and I did this on purpose. I will explain step by step. So we're going to go into okay, so we're defining the main function named main, which I said, and so we have a local variable named level assignment operator. You go into the function input, you ask the question, what is your level? The user enters it after this prompt right here. He enters whatever his level is, like 70. So he says 70. Change it to int. Okay, so so it won't be a string, because implicitly it will be a string unless you change it to an int or a float. Okay, so we just want to keep it as an int. So you know that. So now we're going to go into the if clause. If level, I typed in 70. If level is greater than or equal to 90, which it isn't, so this expression will be false. It'll go to the else. Now it goes to the if clause, and so it says if level, which is 70, is greater than or equal to 80. I'm saying 70 because I'm guessing that you guys will type out 70, or we'll just stick with 70. So if 70 is greater than or equal to 80, which it isn't, so this expression returns false. So it'll go to else clause, and then under the else, this is the block of code under the else, right? So under the else, so we go to the if, or actually this whole thing is a block under this else. So we go to if level is greater than or equal to 70. So if 70 is greater than or equal to 70, this expression returns true. Print you are level 70 or above. It'll go to the block of statement here. Okay, so since it reached an expression that returns true here, it'll get out of everything. It won't continue on. It'll get out. It's done. Okay, because under the else we gone into here and runs everything, but it can't go to else here because we've already have an expression here that returns true. So it won't go to the else. Remember that. You've done it before. If this expression is true, it won't go to else, and then it'll skip everything else that's in the else because it's in the block of the else. If that's not confusing. So after defining this, now we obviously we have to move the main parentheses back, because we don't want this, under the block, and within the block under the function header named main. We don't want to do that. What will happen is, if we did that, it'll create a loop. We don't want a loop. The loop is not what we want. So we want to bring this out of the block, align it with the function header here in order for this to work. Control save. And I will double check to make sure everything is okay. So we'll run the program. I did 2 main functions here because I'm showing you that you can call this function named main from memory as many times as you want. Okay, what you're doing first is you're defining the function, right? Def main. You're putting this block of code into memory referenced by the function named main. Okay, and then after you do that, you can call the function by typing out the function named and then the parentheses. And so you can do it multiple times. This is in memory, and you called it multiple times. You can do that. Okay, so now you know that. We'll go into the run module. What is my level? I said 70. You are level 70 or above. Now it asks me again because I ran the main function again. So I'll do a different one. 82. You are level 80 or above, which is true because 82 is level 80 or above. It ran this twice because I called the main function twice from memory up here. So now you've seen this staircase effect. Now you can have multiple choices for your user, or multiple outputs for your user. Okay, so you saw that. So it created this staircase effect, and if you had, like hundreds more of these if-else that are staggering along into a staircase, it will cause you to want to scroll to see the whole source code. And just looking at it, I was just explaining it. It was kind of confusing, right? It's kind of confusing to explain this because it's just complex if you add more options later on, if you add more if and else later on. So instead of doing that, let us use the if-elif-else clause. Okay, so we're going to use the if-elif-else clause. So we're going to get rid of all of this and type it all again. And so let's type it all again. So if level greater than or equal to 90, do a colon. So we'll go into the block of code, do the print, do a single quote, you are level 90 or above. And now what we're going to use is elif. Elif level greater than or equal to 80 colon. So now it knows to go into the block. So print parentheses, you are level 80 or above. Now we want to use another elif. Now you don't have to do these like blank spaces. I just do it for convenience so you can see the code better. You don't have to do that. You can keep everything together. And I'll do this on purpose so you know that it still works. You can keep everything together like that. Elif level is greater than or equal to, but you can't keep this together because then the keyword will turn off, so you don't want that. Less than or equal to 70 colon. Use the print function, parentheses, single quote. You are level 70 or above. You are level 70 or above. And I want to get out of this block. So elif level greater than or equal to 60 colon print parentheses. You still here? Okay. So print 60. You are level 60 or above. Period. And then finally, we're going to go into the else colon, go into the block. We're going to do print parentheses, single quote. You are below required level. Okay, so you save that. See how simple it is? It doesn't make that staircase effect. So if it was long enough, we didn't have to scroll, through the source code. So now we can see everything. It doesn't make that staircase effect. So let's go into this. You know what this does, and you know what these two do. So we'll go into the if clause. If level is greater than or equal to 90, whatever the user entered into the program, it'll go into block of code. If this expression returns false, you know what happens. It'll go to the next else if clause. Okay, this is elif is just short for else if. instead of having else and then the if was like indented over down here, we brought those two together and have a new keyword called elif. It just brings those two together so they're on the same line. So essentially what it's saying, if, and then if that doesn't return true, it'll go to else, and then if down here, but it's on the same line. So elif, level greater than or equal to 80. If this expression returns false, expression is false, it won't run the block here. Then it'll go to the next one. If this expression is false, it won't run the block here. If it goes to the next one, if this expression is true, it'll run this block here, and it'll skip everything else below the elif here. If this one was true, it'll skip this elif clause, skip this elif clause, skip this, and then continue on with the program starting here and here. Okay, so we'll do the run module. What is your level? 88. You are level 80 or above. So what happened is, if level is 88 greater than or equal to 90, returns false, skips it, goes to the elif. My level is 88. It is greater than or equal to 80. So it is greater than 80. So now it goes into this block of code here. Okay, and then what happens to the rest of it, it skips. Okay, so if I do like 44 for this one, you are below required level. It still checks for each one of these expressions, okay, because each one of these expressions are false, so it goes to the next one. When one of these expressions return true, it won't continue with the if-elif-else clauses, if that makes sense. I hope the output makes sense, and I hope this whole thing makes sense to you. This is a lot better than typing if-else, if-else, if-else over and over and over again. So just use the if-elif-else if you want to give the user multiple outputs based upon a condition that must be fulfilled, this condition here. And I did the multiple main function just to show you that you can call it multiple times. So, and that's it. So let's go back into here before I'm done. Make sure the if, elif, else clause are aligned. These are aligned, as you can see right here. You can do another if, elif, else clause down here, but it won't be connected to this one, right? So if I started, a new one, so if, and then let's say that I have some condition, elif, and then else. These only work with each other, but not with these. Okay? It starts with if, ends with else, starts with if, ends with else. Just pretend like there's some expression after this and block of code. Okay? So just remember that. So backspace, save. They are aligned, and the block of code, as you learned before, it can be just, it must be indented. Okay? The least it can be indented is one space. One space. It'll still run. It doesn't have to be aligned with all these other blocks of code. See, it still works. What is your level? Let's say 99. You're level 90 or above. Ask me again. 66. You're level 60 or above. And it skips this one right here based upon my output. So I hope this makes sense. I sure hope so. And that's it. That's it. That's the if, elif, else, and you learned about the string comparison before using the Ascii chart if you want to know what the decimal is, and then it translates into binary so your computer will understand and run your program. Okay, and that's it. This was pretty long. I'll probably split this. I don't know. You'll know because you saw this. So that is it for today. I will see you in the next tutorial.